when we're talking about DNA, the first thing that we need to talk about is what it is and why it looks the way that it does. So back in the 50s, this pair of gentlemen, Watson and Crick, got together. Before there was ever a microscope that could actually see DNA, they used physics to be able to figure out what the shape had to have been, and they were able to come up with this DNA double helix model. And it's amazing because eventually we found that DNA does look exactly like what they hypothesized that it was going to look like. So this was one of the first drawings that they made of how they thought it was going to look and how they thought everything was going to fit together. So those are important names in science, Watson and Crick. And DNA has this very specific shape to it. It's called the double helix. So it looks like this twisted ladder. And the reason it's shaped that way is because it has what's called a sugar phosphate backbone. That's like the sides of the ladder, and it's this sugar held together with phosphate, and then we have our nitrogen-containing bases. And our nitrogen-containing bases are all the rungs of the ladder right here. And they fit together, the A's with the T's, the G's with the C's, and make it so that DNA twists around. And so here you can see the A, because of its shape, the adenine, is always going to bind with thymine with these two bonds between it. And then guanine is always going to pair with cytosine, and it's got the 3 bonds between it. So that's how nucleic acids and nucleotides fit together, and then it spirals around and it forms the backbone of this DNA. So sugar phosphate backbone and nitrogen-containing bases are paired together. So A always goes with T, G always goes with C, and those are called our base pairs. So sugars, phosphates, and bases, that's what makes up DNA. And so DNA then works together simultaneously to make up genes, part of our genetic code. And so those contain instructions for making certain types of proteins, like the types of proteins that make our skin the color it naturally is, that make our hair wavy or curly or naturally straight, that give us freckles, that give us our eye color. DNA, and which is also amazing if you think about it being the universal code for life, the same A's and T's and G's and C's that make up us also make up every other living thing out there. So we've got bacteria made up of A's and T's and G's and C's. We've got plants made up of A's and T's and G's and C's. So that DNA is what makes us characteristically human, and it makes all the other species out there what they are also. And so it's really fascinating to think about this set of instructions that's found inside of the nucleus of every single one of your cells. And it's also found in all of the cells of an onion, of a fruit fly, of a single-celled amoeba, of a whatever that thing is. Looks like a lamprey? Oh, I'm not sure. So here's it as we go through it step by step. You start off here in the nucleus of the cell. We've got all of our chromosomes with our genome coded into it. This complete set of instructions to make every part of your body, and every hormone that you make, and every steroid that you make, and everything, every enzyme. All of that is going to be found in the nucleus of virtually every cell in your body. And all of that code together is called your genome. So like if you've ever heard of the Human Genome Project, that's where they attempted to sequence all of our DNA, and they've done that. So getting a little smaller, we get into our chromosomes, which in the humans have that kind of X pattern to them, and these unique pieces of DNA are going to fit together in an order that makes you what you are. And they vary in the length. They line them up. We've got 23 chromosomes. They line them up by how big they are, starting with the biggest, and then going all the way down to the smallest, and then finally the sex chromosomes. So in humans, we get 23 chromosomes from our mom, and 23 chromosomes from our dad. So that's called a diploid number. That's meaning we have 2 copies of each one of our chromosomes, one that came from our mom and one that came from our dad, for a total of 46 chromosomes. And each one of these genes are going to be specific sequences of DNA. It says on an average about 3,000 bases long that contain the information necessary to produce all or parts of proteins. So if you've ever heard about stem cells, and stem cells are the beginning cells that can then turn into any other kind of cell in your body, these stem cells hold so much amazing promise because they can transfer into or transform into any of the cells in your body. So I believe that stem cells are going to be something in the future that will cure things like the diabetes that I have, that will cure some of these enzyme diseases, some of the protein diseases. So stem cells have this amazing ability to turn into any kind of cell. So that will be something that will be amazing for science. So the number of chromosomes, not all of them have 46 chromosomes like humans do. Species to species, they have different amounts of chromosomes. So if you look here, we see corn has 10 unique chromosomes. Fruit flies only have 4. So a lot of times when you hear about students taking intro to biology classes, they do breedings of fruit flies. I know that I used to do that when I was in my undergrad, because fruit flies have so few chromosomes, it's really easy to manipulate them and to look at them since there's only 4 of them. Dogs and chickens have 39 different chromosomes. Goldfish have 47. So it's kind of amazing. And these are the amount of chromosomes. So if you think about it, if you double dogs and have 39, then you have what, 78? So 78 total chromosomes. And you think about goldfish, they have close to 100 chromosomes. So why does something become a goldfish and not become a human? Or why are goldfish so complicated when we are not as complicated? Why does corn have 10 and we have 23, or corn has 20 total and we have 46? So individuals in each of these species inherit 1 copy of these chromosomes from each one of their parents. And so what we think of genes as is this sequence of bases in DNA molecules that carry the information necessary for producing a functional product, usually a protein molecule or RNA. So I heard something interesting today when I was researching this as I was putting it together, talking about how genes are like our computer programs. So your computer program is written so that it will do something very specific. It will have an outcome that's very specific. So our genes are written like a computer program that releases this protein molecule at the end. And if you think about our chromosomes, going back to this slide, where they have 10, 4, 39, 47, basically these chromosomes are like computer programs on your laptop. You know how some people have tons and tons of programs on their laptop, and other people have just a few because they don't know how to really use them? So people that have less programs may use all of those programs, and then people that have lots of programs may only use a few of them, or they may use more of them. So basically what we're looking at here is like you as a laptop. You have 46 different programs on your computer, and it's making up all the proteins that you need in order to become you. So then getting down even smaller from genes to alleles. Alleles are these alternative versions of a gene that code for the same trait. So if you look at our end product down here, we've got daisies with different colored petals. What these are is the alleles, which are these little alternative versions of genes, and they're carrying the instructions for some kind of trait. So this may be the orange gene, this one may be the white gene, this one may be the yellow gene, and depending on which one of those alleles you get is what color the flowers are going to be. And so same thing with other traits that you see inside of your body. Things like skin color, eye color, hair texture. Those can sometimes be influenced by the environment, but usually is influenced by the genes. So if you've ever heard people talking about junk DNA, this is where they talk about DNA that may be left over from our ancestors that doesn't actually do anything anymore. There is, as you can see here, fruit flies have like virtually no junk DNA. Humans, Homo sapiens, have 1,400 or 3,400 in their genome size. So the genome of a fruit fly, very small. Humans, a little bit bigger. Onions, however, are super complicated. They've got 18,000 genes in their genome. That salamander, I guess that was a salamander, not a lamprey that we were looking at. This salamander has 84,000 genes in its genome, and this amoeba here has 670,000 genes in its genome. So just because an organism has a certain amount of genes doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the bigger of the organisms. You would think like, oh, humans would have the most and then bacteria would have the least. But it doesn't actually work that way. Salamanders and amoebas and onions actually have way more genes in their genome than we have. So scientists are constantly looking at, well, why does that happen? So the amount of DNA that you have doesn't necessarily make you more complex than an onion. It just means that maybe an onion is using less of the programs on its laptop than we are using. So they're not more complex than us. They have 5 times more genetic code, but they are actually simpler than we are. So that may be due to this proportion of the DNA that codes for the proteins in an organism. So the humans have about 2% of their DNA that actually makes them humans. Fruit flies have 19%. Here we've got our roundworms, 25%. This is a type of plant, and here we've got a bacteria. So depending on how many of your DNA actually code for proteins, makes you as complex as you possibly can be. So I said, like a person with a bunch of computer programs on their laptop. We're not using all of those computer programs.